Hey everybody, Todd here, and I hope you're having a great week. Today I've got a comparison for you with a microphone that costs $3,500 versus a microphone that costs $350. We've got the Manley reference Cardioid versus the Aston Spirit. Is the Manley really 10 times better, or at least 10 times different than the Spirit? Let's find out. Now all the audio for this comparison will be without processing, so you can hear what the microphones sound like out of the box. To start out, I have them both connected directly into my PreSonus Quantum 2632, so we're using interface preamps that are pretty transparent. Because I know a number of you, if you're going to use this microphone, will probably use an outboard preamp. I have a few of those later on. I'll let you hear if that makes any difference. Now keep an eye on the lower third. It'll let you know what the microphone you're listening to is, as well as what the settings are. So starting out here with some vocal tests, these microphones are both really meant to be used with a pop filter. If I talk right into them, people, because, people, because. It's not optimal, meant really for voice or for singing. Of course, if we have a pop filter, I'll let you hear if that makes any difference in my voice. People, because. People, because. And you see if, again, it makes any difference talking through this versus the microphone itself. Both these microphones are quite sensitive. They're large diaphragm condenser microphones. The Manley is actually a tube microphone, so it has an outboard power supply. The Aston runs off of phantom power, so both require some power, a little different approach here. Both are known to be fairly forward, bright microphones, very crisp and clear. We'll see if that comes through as well in the audio today. Now, the first thing I notice as I'm monitoring these microphones is just how sensitive they are. In particular, the Manley, it's picking up all my breaths very, very easily, and I'm not going to do anything to remove them in this video. Again, everything without processing. Now, I'm not going to go through a lot of spoken word tests with them. I've got a full review on the Aston if you want to check that out. And Bandra over at Podcastage did a great review here on the Manley Ref, so you can get all of those kinds of spoken word tests. I'll leave those to you. But I will give you a little bit of an idea of the working distance and the sound pickup in the room. So right now I'm at about 8-10 inches away from both microphones, and this is kind of the pickup. As I move away from them, now I'm sitting at about 18 inches away, and I'm still seeing a really strong signal on the meters here. Nothing's really going away too much. Just going to kind of snap my fingers off to the side, give you an idea of what the sound is like in the room. So again, a lot of sensitivity here. Typically, you're going to want to be close to these microphones to get really strong signal versus what they're picking up in the background. Now, I'm going to do a test with percussion here just so you can listen for fine detail. And I'm going to start it with a shaker, and so compare the two mics. And I'm monitoring the Manley again, and there was a lot of detail there. Now I've got a Cabasa here to give us a little more percussive sound. Yeah, you really get that smack. It picks it up really well. Now for both of those recordings, I had the microphones positioned about 12 inches away from the speaker with the capsules lined up directly with the center of the speaker. So trying to keep it as close as possible. I also balanced the levels manually as close as I could. I didn't want to normalize anything. I didn't want to affect the dynamic range of the recording. So when to my ears, I hear the Manley is a little brighter. Some of those upper frequencies, 4K, 5K, and then it sounds a little more recessed in the mids. The mids seemed a little more forward in the Spirit. Again, to my ears, let me know in the comments if you heard something different there. Now, when I look at the first graph, we can kind of see that there's a little bit of a bump in those sort of presence frequencies with the Manley that isn't quite there with the Spirit. And so it could just be, the relative sound. Low frequencies seemed really close. And when I do the overlay graph here, again, on a logarithmic basis, you can see just how close closely, the frequency response really does follow with the two microphones. And moving over to the linear graph, just so we can get a little more detail in the upper frequencies, it kind of bears out the variance of the Manley being a little bit brighter than the Spirit. But again, really close. You could use these two interchangeably, in my opinion, for rock guitar cabinet anyways. Now, on blues guitar, I have to say I was really surprised. I found them to be virtually identical. I mean, we're be splitting hairs, in my opinion, from one to the next. Now, I look at the logarithmic comparison here. Again, there's very minute differences from one to the other, but certainly the profiles follow each other. And when I do the overlay here in the log to start with, it's really apparent the similarity here in the way they pick up that clean sound with the blues guitar. Moving over to the linear analysis, we can see, you know, they kind of cross paths a little bit in terms of response in some of the upper frequencies, but overall, again, I'm going to say they're pretty interchangeable. So far, I'm not hearing 10 times the price out of the Manley versus the Spirit. I will say again, with the rock guitar, the Spirit maybe was saturated a little bit more in the mid frequencies versus the Manley, but 10 times difference, I don't know. Now, neither of these microphones would be my right-away go-to choice for miking up a bass cabinet, but it was an interesting experiment. I would say that both recordings to me sounded very authentic to what I actually heard in the room. And so that's what I want to get. I want to reproduce the sound that I'm happy with in the space as much as possible. So they absolutely did that. The logarithmic comparison, again, really virtually the same. So little difference. If anything, I thought maybe the Manley gave the perception of a little more detail versus the Spirit. Again, I'm really splitting hairs here, but I kind of heard that a bit. Looking at the overlay again, we can see again the graphs really, they just pass one another all the way through the spectrum. And the linear analysis with that detail again in the top end shows us the same thing. They really kind of just trade blows up and down in terms of frequency response in the various ranges. So I'm again, I don't know if it's 10 times better, but I heard a little bit of a difference in bass. Now, listening back, I'm going to say both of these microphones fit the acoustic guitar very well. They had very good detail, enough brightness in the top end without sacrificing the low end. Keep in mind, the guitar I'm playing was a Takamine New Yorker. It's not like a Dreadnought that's going to have a deeper sound, so it tends to be a little brighter guitar to begin with. But again, I thought the microphones did a great job, more so than on the amp cabinets, actually. I wouldn't think of either of them as being my go-to for that. but for acoustic guitar, either one I think does a great job. And looking at the logarithmic frequency analysis, you can see that there's very little difference in the overall spectrum picked up on both of these microphones with acoustic. Looking at the overall log, you can see that really the two graphs just follow one another. There's not a whole lot of difference. And once again, the extra detail in that linear analysis shows a little bit of crisscross here and there, but overall, both microphones very usable, and I don't know that I would prefer one over the other given the price anyways. And because I know many of you, particularly with the Manley microphone, will be using an outboard preamp, we'll do a few comparisons. I'm starting out now on the Universal Audio 710 Twin-Finity preamp. Right now I have it set fully in the solid state mode. It has a solid state and a tube topology. So again, here we are on the Manley microphone. I'm going to just dial it up. I'm sitting here again, fully solid state, and I'll move the control all the way to tube. And now you're getting a tube preamp, fully tube circuit, and so we get a little more saturation. I'm certainly hearing it. Let's go ahead and do the same thing with the Spirit. Okay, now I've moved the Spirit over to the UA710, and again, starting out here in the solid state mode, this is what it sounds like. Once again, I'll dial the saturation up here, turning it up all the way to the full tube circuit, and so now again, more saturation. This time I'm monitoring that as well, and yeah, I can definitely hear it. Both microphones, again, I think performed well with this preamp. I don't know that I heard it make a huge difference in terms of one pulling ahead of the other, though. And now I've connected up the Manley reference cardioid to my Warm Audio WA73 EQ. Now I don't have the EQ on, I'm using the preamp only, and this is kind of the tone that you get through it. It of course, is a classic Neve 1073 style preamp. Certainly the inductor EQ is a big part of this preamp, but I want to keep things as even and fair as possible without processing here. So this is the Manley. Let's go ahead and hear the Spirit. Okay, and now I moved the Spirit over to the WA73 EQ. Again, no EQ, just preamp. Had to boost the gain a little bit. Needs a little more than what I'm getting out of the power box with the Manley microphone. Yeah, definitely changes the sound a little bit compared to the other preamp, and certainly compared to the transparency of the Quantum interface. But again, I'm not noticing either one of these microphones jumping out ahead because of the preamp. They're both different with it, but it's not like, oh yeah, with a preamp, all of a sudden I can hear 10 times more than this one. So that's what I'm looking for here in these tests. Overall, I think they're pretty comparable. And now I've connected the Manley reference cardioid up to my Cranborne Audio Camden 500. It's a 500 series preamp in the rack behind me here. It's known as being a very transparent preamp, but of course it has that mojo circuit that lets you dial things up. I've left that off again just so there's no kind of variability with it. So on the most transparent mode with the Camden 500, this is what the Manley sounds like. I'll go ahead and throw the Spirit on there as well. And this is the Aston Spirit on the Camden 500. Again, transparent settings here. A little more gain required for this one versus the Manley. Both really transparent, and that's again what I'm looking for from this preamp, to get kind of as pure of the sound as I can get from either microphone. Hope you can hear the difference if there is any. And for the last test, we use the Focusrite ISA One. I've connected up the Manley microphone to it, and I'm also using the ISA One mode on that preamp, so that just gives us the sound of the famous Focusrite console that was installed over at Air Studios. And so, it has a little brightness apparently from the preamp. It's supposed to give you a little more clarity, a little more air, if you will. So this is the Manley microphone with that, and we'll try the Spirit out as well. And now this is the Aston Spirit connected into the Focusrite ISA One preamp, again, still in that ISA mode. And a little more forward, a little more air, a clarity to the speech is what I'm kind of hearing here as well. Again, a similar result with both microphones. I don't notice a huge difference, at least monitoring it in real time. I'll have to listen back to it after. But this is the sound, so compare them. Did you hear a huge difference from one to the other? Just a few quick notes on build quality here. Both microphones are very well made. I would say the Spirit's probably a little more robust or durable than the Manley is. There's a bit of flex to the cage around the capsule on the reference mic here, so got to be a bit careful with that. Manley comes with a shock mount. I don't have the shock mount for the Spirit, although there is a kit that does have it. So that's just something you'll notice. This Manley microphone comes with a really heavy-duty case, so it carries the power supply and everything in it. You get the Spirit in a cardboard box, so you're not paying for that. But again, it's 10 times the price for the Manley reference. Of course, the Manley comes with a power supply. It's really durable and well made as well. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the features and specs. Both of these are large diaphragm condenser microphones. Manley, of course, is a tube microphone. It's a little bit of a difference there. The frequency response on the Manley is wider than it is on the Spirit. Not an issue in the vocal range, but depending on what you're recording, you may find some value in that. I would like the Manley to be a little quieter than it is in this price range. It's got a little more self-noise than I would like to see, in this $3,500 price range. So that's something there. Other than that, very comparable in a lot of ways, except not price. So now that you had a chance to listen to these microphones in a few different situations, I'll give you my final thoughts. First thing I will say is that these two microphones are more similar than they are different, in my opinion. And when you have $350 versus $3,500, I was looking for a little more difference than I actually heard today. Both had a lot of clarity. They presented the acoustic guitar very well. I thought they were good on voice. I didn't like either one so much on a guitar cabinet or bass. Surprisingly good actually on bass, but not really what I would use. It wouldn't be my go-to anyways. Percussion, a lot of detail. The Manley perhaps had a slight edge there in terms of the amount of detail that it picked up. But again, was it 10 times better? I don't know. You let me know what you think below. So I hope this comparison was interesting for you and helped you out. Now, if you're looking for other ideas on how to level up your home studio, check out one of the videos on the screen. As always, I'm glad you joined me today. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time.